Hey, family in Christ and friends, so thankful that you found your way here and that you're joining us for this next 45 minutes or hour or so. I'm really excited to have a couple experts in the field who are now mad at me for calling them experts, but I have some friends from our church and I want to introduce them to you. They all have business and financial backgrounds, and what we really want to get to at the heart of this conquering Corona financially is the idea that God cares about our lives. He cares about the holistic, our whole life. He doesn't just care about our attendance on a Sunday morning in a worship service, as important as that is. But God cares about us financially, emotionally, relationally, our bodies. He cares about it all. And so actually, when we look at scriptures, we don't see Jesus or anybody in the Bible shying away talking about money. And the reality is we're in one of those times in our global economy where money is at the forefront again. Health, yes, obviously, but there's a lot of media and a lot of news coverage that's talking about health. And so we also know that the way that people are getting hit pretty hard with this is financially. So today what we're really looking to do is we're going to try to talk to hopefully 3 different groups of people who are out there. And you may find yourself in one or more of these buckets. But we're hoping that somehow some of the content that we're going to share and talk about hits at home with you. And we hope that more than anything else, that God is able to connect with you, to encourage you to take some action in your life as the world and our financial landscape and everything is shifted from us a little bit here. We have a couple different people that I want to introduce you to. Dave Putney is on with us, who has a underdegree graduate in business administration and a master's in computer science. He sat on a whole bunch of boards in his time, including the board of directors with the Westminster Pension and the Westminster Deferred Compensation Plan, the Westminster Federal Credit Union, and a bunch of more stuff. So a great guy. It's been fun to get to know him a little bit more through this, and I'm excited to hear some of the wisdom that he brings to the table. We also have Lisa Malik on with us, and she's actually a certified financial planner with Lighthouse Financial, and so super excited to have her in a local financial planning and investment management firm. So that's really cool to have Lisa here with us. Thanks, Lisa, for joining us today. And then also we have Aaron Smith, who is also a former financial advisor and currently is facilitating, actually has facilitated financial classes here at the church for us and is doing some cool things out in the marketplace as well. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Regan Archer. I'm one of the pastors on staff here at the church. I also have been in the real estate world for the past 15 years, have seen a lot of things in the real estate market with highs and lows, watching the markets crash and helping people with short sales, and also have a mortgage loan originator license. So we wanted to just kind of bring some different voices from Family in Christ here to be able to share with you a couple different things. And we hope that you'll enjoy it. So at this point, if you haven't already, you can, if you're watching on Facebook, you can like it, you can share it, you can send links to people, you can tag people. Another thing that we'd love for you to do is underneath, you can start writing some comments. We won't have time to respond in line or in order, but if you leave those different comments, we can always circle back to you and we can try to catch up down the road with that. You know, the first thing is I already touched on this a little bit, but does God actually care about money? You know, we already said yes. Well, we see this in a lot of different places, and some of the passages that came to my mind when I was thinking about this is, you know, in Galatians 6, Paul talks about the reality that we're to carry our own load. We're to carry our own load. We're supposed to figure out how do we provide for our lives and for our families. But then Paul also realizes that there's times that are tough in life where we need to carry each other's burdens. So we see that in Galatians chapter 6, verses 2 and verses 5. And so I think that's an important principle, is to think through, you know, in these times, what's our load, and then how can we carry the burden of some of the people around us. In 1 Timothy, we're taught, Paul again tells us how important it is to be able to provide for our families and for our households. But then overwhelmingly, you see in Scripture, in Proverbs and Colossians and Corinthians, just all these different passages about that we're called to be generous. We're called to be a people who care for other people. And I think in this whole coronavirus, that's one of the things that we're seeing already come out of this. Obviously, in the supermarkets, we see the greed of people and people's fear as they hoard and as they look to look out for number one. But if you push that aside just a little bit, I think that we're also seeing a new wave of generosity and of love for others and taking care of our neighbors. So I think there's some really cool things that come out of this time as well. So now we're going to kind of switch and we're going to look at hopefully 3 different groups of people that are out there. First, we're going to talk to and kind of address the group of people out there where you're okay. You know, the daily living isn't going to change for you too much. The second, we're going to talk about the group of people who's starting to feel the pinch. And then finally, we'll talk to the group of people who are hurting from some significant and serious loss. And we hope, again, that as we move through this, it'll find you, that this message will find you, and there are some things in here that can be applicable to you. So first, we're going to talk about how to survive a financial crisis if you're doing okay. So what do you do? When the stock market's down, these questions of, should I pull out? Do I take out all my money? How do I take advantage of the current market? What are the different scams or different things that I should be watching for? So first, Dave, could you kind of step in and could you speak to some of that?
Yeah, thank you, Regan. I'd be happy to do that. When we talk about the market being down, it's not surprising that people feel nervous right now or even downright panic when they watch the S&P 500 stock index drop 30% from its peak to its trough in a matter of 22 days, fastest in history ever. And no one can accurately predict where this bottom is going to be in this crash or what the recovery is going to look like. But we say, should an investor sell now and get out? Is that what people are feeling? We can't answer that question. But what we can do is we can take a look backwards. We can take a look at history and see how previous market crashes worked and what the outcome of those were. So I'm going to take about the next 4 or 5 minutes and just kind of run you through a couple of historical things that I think will be helpful for you as you try to navigate and digest what's happening now and what that might look like coming out on the other end. So let's take a look at 3 graphs. These are going to show what the change in the S&P 500 stock index looks like during 3 different time periods. That'll be a 1-year, a 5-year, and a 50-year. The 1-year chart looks pretty scary, but take a look at the 5-year chart. On the 5-year chart, you're going to see that decline still looks pretty significant. It's not small, but it doesn't look as scary as that 1-year graph. But let's go back now 50 years, which really takes us back to 1970. Some of us, I remember those days as well. Here you can clearly see that the market declines were associated with a dot-com bubble in 2000 through 2002. And also you can see that dip right there at 2007, where we went into the Great Recession of 2007 through 2009. And that one's familiar to a lot of you. So let me just talk about that for a minute. Those who were invested in stocks in the S&P 500 at that time experienced a significant decline in market value. Those individuals that sold during that period locked in a real loss, and those that waited had a significantly different outcome. So let's talk about 2 investors. We'll talk about investor A and investor B. They both had terrible market timing. They both put in $50,000 into this S&P index fund on the day the market peaked, immediately before we started into the Great Recession. Investor A got pretty nervous, said, I got to get out of here. I can't afford to take any more losses. So investor A decided to sell at the market trough. He took his $21,000 that was remaining, and he bought a 10-year treasury bond. And that was yielding about 3% at the time. Investor B was a long-term investor also, but he decided to stick it out. And in about 5 years, about 5.5 years, investor B saw his balance in his account at $50,000. So he had regained that entire loss from $21,000 back to $50,000 in a matter of 5 years. By the end of 2019, Investor B saw his investment grow to $103,000. So even with the recent 30% downturn in the market, Investor B would have still had a portfolio worth about $72,000. So Investor B also collected some dividends along the way, which helped with some current income needs. But as we circle back to Investor A, he now has about $29,000 from cashing out his bond last year, while Investor B is $43,000 closer to achieving his long-term goals than Investor A. So in this particular case, in this particular market scenario, the long-term investor who said, I'm going to stay the course, ended up with a greater balance, obviously, than the individual that in Investor B. There was also one other investor. That was Investor C. Investor C had the same amount of money invested at the peak, but when the market crashed, Investor C says, I needed that money. I'm panicked. I need that money to pay some bills before the end of the year that are coming up, and I plan to use the money for that. So Investor C also cashed out to try to pay those bills that were coming up. So right now, the listeners may have a question for us about how long is it going to take? I mean, in that case, it took 5 years to regain what the market had lost. How long is it going to take this time? Well, we wish we knew. We don't. What we do know is that if we look back on the last 6 major crashes in the stock market since 1957, some of which included the dot-com bubble, which included Black Friday in 1987, which included the 80 to 82 recession, and going even further back, the 1973-74 oil crisis. After all of those crashes, it took between 1 year to just over 7 years before the market fully regained all of its lost value, and then went on to exceed the previous market highs and achieve new market highs in time. So for a long-term investor, what's the answer? You've got to decide that for yourself, but we can tell you what history shows. So what should you be thinking about moving forward? And we don't have a lot of time today to get into the details on these things, but let me give you 5 little tips about things you should be thinking about now. You think about, what are my short-term and long-term goals, and how can I achieve those? Think about whether or not you need to reassess your tolerance for risk. If you're panicked right now because of what the market's doing, maybe you have too much invested in stocks and not enough to kind of lower that volatility, for instance, investing in bonds or fixed. And then what is your allocation between those? Do I have 80% in stocks, and do I have 20% in fixed, or do I have 50% in stocks and 50% in fixed? And is that in sync with my tolerance for my risk? And then also, we talked about Investor C a couple minutes ago. Investor C said, I needed that money to pay bills before the end of the year. One of the things to think about as you move forward from this point is, how soon do I need that money? How soon am I going to need to pull that money back out? Or in other words, what's my time horizon? You understand probably a little bit more now, you may have before, but stock investing should really be reserved for your long-term goals and not some of those short-term needs or short-term bills that are coming up. That's so good. Then the 5th item is, are you diversified? Are you diversified in a way that reduces some of the risk associated with investing in stocks? So for example, at the beginning of the year, if your portfolio looked like I have a cruise line stock, or I have one airline stock, or maybe I have an airline stock and a cruise line stock, and I'm really hurting now. How would you be hurting a little bit less right now is through a broad basket of diversified assets. And those may include target date portfolios or balanced portfolios that have a broad range of assets in them, from small to large, mid-cap, other investments. So just some things to think about as you move forward, just 5 tips to think about. And, we've got a couple ideas too on how to take, like Regan had mentioned earlier, a couple ideas on how to take advantage of some of this market crisis right now. So Lisa had an idea that she wanted to talk about here in regard to IRA conversions. Lisa?
Thanks, Dave. One idea, and a lot of people like the idea of tax-free money in retirement, and that is something that a Roth IRA can provide for you. If you don't know too much about a Roth IRA, I'm not going to get into a little tutorial, that would just take too long, but essentially a Roth IRA goes in, you pay taxes on the money going in, it grows tax-free, and when you use it, it comes out tax-free. So one suggestion, one idea, something to ponder would be if you have current IRA money, or and that account is down, if your value is down right now, and we do fully expect things to recover, maybe not completely, maybe they'll go gangbusters and go through the roof. We don't know, but we do fully expect some recovery. And right now everything is depressed, values are depressed. This is an ideal time actually to do a Roth conversion, where you take money in a traditional IRA that you did not pay taxes on when it went in. You can convert it to a Roth by paying tax on that money right now. So if you pay tax on those dollars that go from a traditional to a Roth IRA, then from then on, that money grows tax. If you fully expect these values to come roaring back, it is a great time to convert a small amount of money that you expect to grow in the very near future, and pay a small amount of taxes on a small amount of money. Especially right now, because of the tax laws right now, taxes are at a historically quite a low rate. And where I work, we say taxes are on sale right now. So that's one idea. And we are not during this session telling you exactly what to do, because we don't know your personal situation. This is an idea that you would really need to speak about with your own financial advisor, or seek some more guidance about these things, because we don't know your whole financial situation, and so we really can't make very specific recommendations. But we do want to provide you with some ideas that that you can look into on your own and talk about with other people that you work with. And I know Dave has a few other ideas as well that he wanted to mention. Before I send you back over to Dave, the other thing I wanted to mention too is, for almost everybody now, if you do have investments, if you have a portfolio, those investments are almost certainly down, and down significantly. If those are funds that you rely upon to generate income, if you're actively taking distributions from that portfolio, I would encourage you to, at this point, look for alternative sources. Maybe you have a good nest egg in the bank. Maybe you have a line of credit on your home. Maybe you've been thinking about getting a reverse mortgage if you're retired. All of those things might be far better places to generate income for the next few months until things start to recover. The thing you really would like to do ideally is take pressure off of your portfolio right now, so that whatever is in there, you can preserve it, so that when things do finally turn around and we start getting some upturn, you'll have as much possible in those portfolios to take advantage of that upturn. I'm going to give you back over to Dave.
Thanks, Lisa. Some really good points there. A couple other things you may want to think about is, number one, if you've got some money that you've been thinking about investing for some period of time, perhaps that money is sitting in a fixed account, and with rates being so low as they are today, long term, you'll be lucky to keep up with inflation, but it may be an opportunity to take advantage of some of the market declines. Again, as Lisa pointed out, everybody has to look at their personal situation and their entire picture before making a decision as to whether to invest right now or to invest later. But one strategy for that investment might be to use a strategy called dollar cost averaging. And so rather than putting all of your money that you might have available into the market at one time, dollar cost averaging is really thinking about dividing that money up over a period of time and investing that on a monthly basis, so that you're not trying to pick that market bottom, because who knows, the market could continue down from where we're at. So to invest the whole pot of money now and have it go down further might not be the right approach, but to invest that over time, so you're not really thinking about, when is the best time, what's the lowest price to put this in at. So that concept, dollar cost averaging, you can research that or talk more with your financial advisor about that strategy. One other one quickly mentioned here is a concept called tax loss harvesting. And let's kind of simplify that a little bit. It's simply a mechanism or a strategy which you may take certain investments in your taxable account, not your IRA, it doesn't work that way, But if you have losses in some investment assets in your taxable account, you could sell those in order to recognize that tax liability or that tax loss, and then be able to save some income tax dollars or get a larger refund at the end of the year. Now, you may think that goes directly in against what we talked about earlier, and that is, do you sell when the market's down? You can always take those funds that you receive from liquidating an asset that has a loss and reinvest those in a similar, not exact, but a somewhat similar asset in order to maintain that market exposure and that opportunity to see those dollars regrow. But in the meantime, that loss that you've recognized can help in offsetting any other capital gains or offset some level of ordinary income at the end of the year, again, resulting in a lower tax bill at the end of the year or a bigger refund. So just a couple ideas there. One of the things we also wanted to kind of mention in this section quickly is the risk right now in some of the frauds and the scams that are going on. Fraudsters are really taking advantage of the fear around the big headlines. And right now that happens to be the COVID-19. Trying to steal your money. They're trying to steal your personal information. So it's always important to be vigilant and know that those attacks really ramp up during these times of crises. For example, you might have seen an email, or if you haven't, you may see it soon, that simply says, click on this link to get your stimulus check, which connects you to the bad actor site and collects personal information about you and tries to steal your money. Another one might be a robocall, where you get a phone call with somebody posing as a federal employee to request some sensitive information over the phone as a precondition to receiving your federal money. Don't fall for it. The FTC the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, has a great webpage on their website with tips that you can use to protect yourself and some information about some of those current scams that are going on. And if you just type into your browser, FTC fraud COVID in a Google search, you'll find the page pretty quickly. So with that, Regan, I'll turn it back over to you for the next section.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Man, what great information, guys. Man, I wish we had 3 or 4 hours. We could just keep going and go deeper and deeper down the rabbit trail. But, if you're at home and you're interested in this type of stuff, feel free to get in touch with Dave or Lisa or other people at our church. Maybe you're in our church and you're wishing that you were on this panel and you have a voice and you'd love to share some things. You can use the comment section below here in the Facebook thread, and you can add some different things there. Well, Aaron's been politely sitting there very quietly, so I'm going to loop him into the conversation here. Aaron, when we look at some of the people who are in kind of that middle bracket, they're starting to feel the pinch. Maybe they haven't completely lost a job, but maybe their hours are cut back, or maybe one of the spouses or the other, or I don't know. I think there's just a middle range group of people that I'd love to talk to. What are some of your thoughts that you want to share with this group of people?
Yeah, thanks, Regan. So, I find myself, kind of in that category today, for example, but I've also found myself in that category in the last market cycle that was really, I think, devastating to a lot of people, i.e. 2009. So in 2008, at the end, in November, I actually lost my job and was hunting for a new job. Landed something in early 2009, right when the market continued to decline. So I started a new job, brought my second child home and my wife from the hospital on the day that I started that job. So, what a crazy time to change careers, to continue to grow the family. But here I am today with a lot of life experience and a lot of confidence that the Lord will provide and that this too shall pass. But a season like we're in now, a season like I was in 2009, is a great time to recalibrate and kind of reevaluate budgets. For those that have income coming in the door, it's a great time to be thinking about some high-level things, but also some really strategic, granular things too. So, we have conversations, or we should be having conversations around needs versus wants when we're feeling the pinch. maybe doing that thing that a lot of people find uncomfortable, and that's actually writing out a budget, or, really evaluating and looking at what's coming in, what's going out, and trying to best decide how to spend those dollars that are coming in. Maybe there are things in our personal budgets that need to be put on hold, or maybe we actually can identify things that, maybe we're spending, money on things we don't really need to be, and we should be allocating for the next market downturn that will come. This too shall pass, but there will be additional moments like this. It's going to happen. So a good chance to kind of reset and be prepared for the next one. So there's all kinds of tools that you can use if you are thinking about evaluating needs versus wants, or if you're really looking to create a family budget. Some of those resources you can find online. There's a lot of different applications out there that do that. I know the class that we went through a couple of years ago through Crown Financial, they have tools as well. But you can get as granular and make it as simple as you want, but make sure that you account for and allocate for the things that are the needs, right? Living expenses, food, transportation, utilities, those fixed costs, those things that you got to pay the bills. Make sure that you account for those. Those things that are variable, that you've got maybe some wiggle room on, or maybe you can delay, vacations, getting the new car, buying that new furniture, updating the bathroom, things like that. Those are things that you can, maybe delay or repurpose some budget that you had allocated for that to take care of your fixed costs. So there's all kinds of tools to kind of map out a really good family budget. And also there's some tools out there I was researching before today as well, in terms of just, kind of pinpointing what your needs versus wants are. For those that don't like to budget too, there's also some other formulas out there if you want to, make it as easy as possible, the 80-10-10 rule or the 50-30-20 rule. There's different rules that certain financial folks have come up with over time that kind of try to streamline it. But I think, to what Dave and Lisa have been saying, everybody's situation is different. So some of those might work and some of those might not work. Some other areas to highlight, and I know that Lisa might have some input, and feel free to jump in, Lisa, whenever you think it's appropriate. But, as we think about maybe creative ways to save where we need to, or, to penny pinch, or to repurpose budget in our family budget, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about doing that. I mean, I think this is a great time to reevaluate maybe what your workplace benefits look like. I know a previous job I had, they had a benefit that I wasn't aware of for the first 3 years of employment, that if I were to take certain surveys or I were to take certain classes through the health insurance, they would actually provide gift cards for food, restaurants, or clothes, or things like that. So ways like that could help, but maybe you just got to research your benefits. Addition to that, it's a good time for maybe, an outreach call to your folks that you work with various insurance, whether it's homeowners insurance or car insurance or life insurance or what have you. A good time to make sure that you have the coverage that meets your needs, that fits that budget. And there are ways that some of those insurance agents and companies can actually help alleviate some cost if the situation is appropriate and it's right for you. You can actually change some variables on your policy or benefits that can actually be a cost savings as well. As we think about other areas, certainly cutting the cord comes to mind. Maybe it's a season where you have to reevaluate, your cable and your internet. Maybe you're going to learn that you're paying for more than you use. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of streaming services today. I'm guilty. I use the old-fashioned rabbit ears on my smart TV, and I get 30 good channels for free. So, there's options like that too. And then we also have, streaming services for movies and whatnot. But getting creative with certain entertainment habits. Maybe there's a way that you can repurpose budget to get to those fixed costs for a season, as you just are kind of reevaluating things. There's a lot of discussion in the marketplace right now about ways to ease the burden for certain fixed costs that you have, whether that's a debt obligation on a student loan or whether that's a mortgage. I don't claim to be an expert on, what your situation is, but maybe it's worth a phone call to a lender or to your student loan provider and ask if there are options. Certainly it's worth the call, probably worth your 5 minutes to see if there's a way that you can improve your situation. Those are a few ways that you could look at potentially kind of softening the blow where you're at now, or repurposing budget to those fixed costs that just aren't going away. And then lastly, as you think about how can you generate maybe some additional dollars in the door, whether it's income or other creative ways. Obviously, a side hustle is something that is top of mind. Maybe there's a skill set that you can provide virtually right now. I mean, I think we're going to be in this environment virtually for weeks, regardless of what is being said in the marketplace today. We just don't know. But maybe you can teach lessons to students that are stuck at home. Music lessons. Maybe you can be a tutor. Maybe you can help a neighbor walk a dog. Just get creative. Be thoughtful about how that could help others in a generous way, or maybe it could help you as well. I know I've read that a number of employers in our area and around the country are actually hiring right now. There's a huge demand and a huge need for people to stock shelves at King Soopers, or to work at Amazon, or who knows what else. I mean, I think I even read something today about one of the local pharmacies. I can't think of who it was, but anyways, I mean, research. There are people hiring, and so that could be a side hustle as well. Those are just a few thoughts that I had that come to the top of my mind. Those are the kind of things I share with my circle of friends. Some of that was really valuable to me in 2009. And even today, it's a great, kind of recalibrating the family budget. So I don't know, Lisa, if you had anything else to offer on kind of that segment of folks that might be penny pinched right now.
Sure, just a few other points to make. I know, and actually I think, Aaron, this was one that you had mentioned before, was going through your credit card bills and going through your monthly expenses. And are you signed up for things that you're not actually using? Subscription services, memberships, scheduled deliveries from Amazon for vitamins, all those types of things. There's probably some stuff in there that you're paying for on a monthly basis, and you're not really getting much value out of them anymore, or not at all. Maybe that gym membership, and you haven't been to the gym in months anyway, and now being at home, you're definitely not going to the gym. Little things like that. And one thing I talk about with my clients too, when they're really having to trim their budget and cut back, is thinking about it in terms of not so much that you have to deny yourself things, but that maybe it's not a no, it's just a wait. Maybe not this month, maybe next month. So if you spread out those wants, then they're more manageable, but you still have something to look forward to. And you don't have to just completely deny yourself, but maybe you spread those things out a little bit more to take some pressure off your budget. And then we talked about maybe, other ways to bring in money, and, things like maybe you have items to sell. Maybe you had a hobby, you were a mountain biker, and now you haven't mountain biked in years, and you have an expensive mountain bike sitting in your garage. Well, maybe you want to sell that. Maybe other things, other items you have that, they're really just collecting dust, and you could actually use them to temporarily generate cash during this time. And somebody else might really appreciate being able to pick up a bargain. Maybe you have a room to rent. Maybe you have, free time at night, and you're really social and you want to go drive for Uber. There's a lot of different things, but we would just encourage you to think creatively and think about, and not let fear overtake you, and not let worry overtake you. We all know the Lord's got our back, but He also expects us to be calm and know that he is with us. But we also need to take some responsibility and think of ways that we can do things a little differently, and maybe spend time on thinking creatively. So those are really my suggestions for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for that again. And so let's make another transition here, and let's talk about the people who are not just feeling the pinch, but they're hurting. You know, the people who are really feeling loss here. There's a lot of people, especially in the restaurant industry, just all over the board. There's a ton of people who are just flat out of work. What does that look like? What are some of the different things that we can share with people as they're kind of determining whether this is a short-term or long-term new normal for them?
Great. I think I'm going to be addressing this one, and let's start off with, again, the same thing. For people who have lost their jobs, for people that are, wondering, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to buy groceries? I've just been laid off, and now I don't even have health care. I don't know when they're going to hire me back, because I don't know when people are coming back to the restaurants and the business where I used to work. The first thing is number one, don't panic. Especially in this time, there are a lot of resources out there. People are rallying to help each other, and it's really, if there's ever a good time to be in a bad financial situation, it is now, because we're all in this together, and there are so many people out there that are rallying. There are businesses and the government and individuals and charities that are all rallying to try to ease this situation. So the first thing I would want you to do is to just, be still and know that God is God, but then be still and take inventory of where you're at. Is this a short-term problem? Is this a long-term problem? For most people who've lost their job, it's going to be a short-term problem. And you've got to figure out how to get by until things start returning to normal. So, the first thing to look at is, what are my needs? And again, you go back to what we just talked about for people who are in the pinch, looking at your expenses, looking at ways to trim, looking at ways to generate alternative income, but also, especially now, if you are, maybe you have a particular skill set, maybe not, but there are a lot of places right now that are hiring, which is a wonderful thing. In 2008, everybody was suffering. Every business was hurting. Unemployment was bad across the board. Here you have different opportunities. Now, restaurants may be closed, but Lowe's is as busy as can be and hiring like gangbusters. I was just there, and everybody's at home, so they want to do home improvement projects, right? So the grocery stores, Amazon, deliveries, healthcare, manufacturing for healthcare, there are lots of great opportunities. And obviously I'm no expert in seeking employment, but I'm sure there are a lot of good sites out there. We're also going to hear from somebody later today later in this recording that might have some useful suggestions. But I would say, that's your first step, is where else can I seek employment in the interim until things get back to normal. It might not be the thing I'm best suited for, but maybe I can get by for the short term. The next thing I would look at is, if you truly have situations where you are struggling to pay those bills, the last thing you should do is just put your head in the sand and ignore it and just, I just can't pay it. There are so many businesses out there that are doing their level best to try to figure out how to help you so that you don't get evicted, you don't default on your payments, you can work out situations where you can pay over time. So please, before you just not pay a bill, call that company, call that business, and see what you can work out with them. There are a lot of things right now where you can work out a situation where you can make this work without getting your electricity turned off, or having rent overdue notices and all those types of things, and having to pay credit card penalties and all of that. So communicate and just be proactive as you possibly can. Then of course there are a lot of government services coming around. There's a lot of assistance, both from charities, from communities, from the government. And we couldn't even begin to start explaining all of those. We will have some links at the end of this to help you kind of navigate some of those things. But the amount of aid available is changing daily. Programs are popping up daily, and businesses are coming up with plans to help people daily. So we won't even attempt to go into any detail about that, but please just, really look into those things, because there's a lot of help out there for you. So don't feel like you're alone, where you're in a situation, it's just an unprecedented situation where everybody is really working hard to make sure that, this has as little impact as they possibly can on your situation. What else would I say? And again, lots of places for employment. Let's see, I think that's really about it. Let's see, Dave, did you have anything else that you wanted to add about that?
I think you raised some really good suggestions and really good points, Lisa. What I would add is, and you've already sort of keyed in on it a little bit, by making sure you contact your bank, contact your mortgage company, contact that company that's holding that loan on your car. Don't just stop making payments, because they're going to work with you right now. And one of the things that's really important, both short-term and long-term, do your best to protect your credit. It's so important that you maintain a good credit rating, not just for future interest rates on loans, but for a lot of other things. So don't just let those bills slip. Call, they'll work with you. A lot of them I saw a list yesterday of the number of banks and credit unions that are working with their customers and even deferring or delaying payments for some period of time. Mm-hmm. So take advantage of that if you need it. Also, it's a good time to step back and say, I've been thinking about, trying to retool a little bit, trying to advance my skills a little bit. So I might be able to do something different or more, or maybe I want that advancement where I'm at, or I want to start moving into another career. You may have some time right now. There may be some opportunity to start investigating and researching, what can I do to retool my skill set? Are there some online certifications that I can do? Or what can I do to advance myself and make myself even more marketable in the future, in the event that something like this happens again? So that's it.
Perfect.
Good. Aaron, did you have any thoughts you wanted to add to this section?
No, I think it's been very well covered. And again, just continue to be proactive. I think that would be my encouragement to folks is be proactive in the situation. Lisa said, don't put your head in the sand. So that would be it for me.
Yeah, that's so good. Awesome. So I think the last section, what we really want to do here is just kind of wrap things up. And I wanted to give every person on the panel here just a couple minutes to just share some of their high-level encouragement to each of you. So Dave, why don't you start?
Well, I would just say, keep a good perspective, keep a longer term perspective. It's really easy right now to panic. It's really easy to feel a lot of anxiety at times like these. So think about your short-term and your long-term goals financially, gain understanding through seeking out of wise counsel, and then establish a plan, whether that plan involves your investments or whether it involves your career or whether it involves establishing a budget, whatever it is, establish a plan of what you want to do, and then be disciplined and follow through to execute on that plan. It was probably 10 years ago, maybe it was 15 years ago. I don't know how long it's been now, but I read a verse that really just stuck with me. And I've claimed that verse multiple times over the years, and I claim it again today. And that comes from Philippians 5, verses 6 and 7, which reads, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, and with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." So I just dwell on that verse in different times, especially in times of anxiety or crisis. So I want to share that with you and hope that those words are of some comfort or help for others.
Awesome. Great. Lisa.
Yes, that's a perfect one, Dave. Perfect verse. I just wanted to focus on the fact that, we feel that this is a crisis. And years ago, I read something that said that the Chinese word for crisis was actually two symbols, One was danger, one was opportunity. I've since learned that that's not actually the case, but I still love that idea that a crisis actually represents danger, but it also represents an opportunity. And as Dave was saying, this is a great opportunity. First of all, before we get into what Dave said, this is a great opportunity for all of us as Christians to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to really shine and show people what we're made of as Christians, that we don't submit to fear. We don't submit to greed. We're not the ones hoarding toilet paper at the grocery store. We're the ones giving out toilet paper. We're the ones, giving of other people in their time of need, even if it hurts. But also the opportunity for ourselves personally as a reboot, as Dave said, it's time for us to reimagine ourselves. Are there things you wanted to do in your life? This is a great time to reimagine who you want to be. And part of that could be, are there online courses or certifications or skills that you can be learning in this downtime when, we're all just kind of stuck at home and we do have a lot of free time. And it's a great time to turn off Netflix and go do something that will be lasting and improve ourselves. So those are the things I guess I would probably want to highlight, is just don't just look at this as a dangerous time, as a crisis, but look at this as where are the opportunities in this situation?
So good. So good. Aaron, bring it.
Yeah. So a couple thoughts. And then when I'm done, do you want me to introduce Brett? Because I know that he is on the line with us.
He popped on? I don't see him.
With us.
Yeah,
Awesome.
He's there.
Sweet. Do it now. Yeah. Why don't you introduce our guest? I didn't see that. So let me move. There he is. Hey, Brett.
Hey, how you doing? I popped in kind of early.
Aaron, why don't you go ahead on my screen to Brett? I didn't see your little thumbnail, so now I see you on here. So, Aaron, why don't you introduce Brett for us? This is really cool, this little connection.
Yeah. Brett, really appreciate you joining us. I shared with you what we're trying to do, but strong probability that there's folks within our community that are going through job loss and have questions about unemployment or have questions about what to do, who to talk to, what's next. So, Brett Walker, I appreciate you joining us. I know that you work with the Denver Economic Development and Opportunity Office. You are officially the manager of employer services. So I imagine that your life has rapidly gotten busier in the last 10 to 14 days. So I appreciate you carving out some time for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a new world, right? Luckily, I saw some signs about 2 weeks ago of preparing for this. So really started preparing my family, knowing that I would need to be there for our residents of the city and county of Denver and the metro area. So I was blessed to just have that foresight and really be prepared for, what we're all facing right now. So last week we were able to kind of get in front of this a little bit more than some other local areas. For the fact that we started developing just ways to connect with our residents as quick as possible on a virtual level. And this is new for us. However, luckily I'm somewhat tech savvy, not like the youngsters, but I'm right in the middle there. So I understand enough to be dangerous. So we started doing some different conference calls and webinars. So absolutely love the invite and thank you so much. Once again, my name is Brett Walker. I'm with the City and County of Denver Workforce Services. I head up the Employer Services team. So what we do is we connect employers with the job seekers and vice versa, job seekers with the employers, making those connections. And I think I heard Lisa and Aaron, actually, Aaron, you were talking about the pharmacy that was hiring. That's CVS. They're really making a lot of hires right now. I'm pretty sure that was the one you were thinking about. A lot of other services that are essential services that are hiring that we're working with. That's changing daily, of course, with the new laws that are coming into place in Denver and then other metro areas picking up on that stay-in-place order. However, what we're doing is really trying to connect them to unemployment insurance. And the unemployment insurance right now is going through a lot of issues, right? Talk about technology. We're not built for, what did we have in 2 days? We had 3 days we had 15,000 in Colorado alone try to apply for unemployment insurance. So there's a little bit of a panic. So I was going to go over that. I think, Aaron, you had some, you were wondering how everyone can be helpful and useful when answering some questions of individuals going through that. So I've got a PowerPoint I can share with you. Aaron, I already sent you basically an email that you can share with everyone on the call, basically different resources they can connect with. There's a 20-minute video for unemployment insurance and how to get connected, and basically how the laws come into play. And then the new laws, of course, with this disaster in front of us. But we have a statewide network. We have over 60 operating workforce centers. They are working at a different capacity right now, being that we're mostly virtual. However, we have some unique things that I'll mention. But we are federally funded, so it's a lot of the same funding that comes through unemployment insurance comes down to the workforce level. And City and County of Denver has the largest budget, and it's based on population. So we have the largest population, also largest budget. However, we really talk about 7 other counties that are the Denver metro area. So I know Aaron was mentioning that he really wanted to make sure that this was information that pertained to everyone. This is everyone in the state of Colorado that could have access to this. All the workforce centers, and it doesn't matter what local area you're in. If we provide a service, I don't care where you are. If you're in Grand Junction and you want to call in, we're definitely going to help you and support you through this. So then basically the best ways we can connect and best tips I have for unemployment, and how are we on time, how much time do I have? 10 minutes maybe?
Yeah, go for another 5, maybe 10 minutes.
All right, I'll be quick without going too quick.
Perfect.
A lot of information, but basically the best things I can tell right now for anyone that's going through the system to really apply for unemployment is to really just try to get on the off hours. Don't do it during the day or the prime hours, just because we're finding that a lot of people are going through, they're halfway through and they lose all their information. So I always suggest save through the process and then try to get the non-peak hours. And then there's something else that was implemented yesterday. If you're A through M, file on Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and afternoon of Saturday. And if you're N through Z, start filing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and before noon on Saturday. So I've got that information in that email for Aaron. And then yesterday we waived the waiting week. So there's a waiting week where it takes about 3 to 6 weeks to get to get through the process. And then after that, once you're approved for unemployment, usually we have a waiting week. We've waived that waiting week. So now they'll get that full check, the 2 weeks check on their first check. Usually it's only 1 week, your first check, and then it goes 2 weeks after that. So we waived that, which is helping. We're also waiving the job search requirements that are part of that. Usually we require 5 applications or job searches per week, but we've waived that for all individuals at this time, just because there are a lot of places that are hiring. However, we're hoping that a lot of these layoffs are temporary and they're job attached. So if you're job attached and you're laid off, where you're working up to 32 hours per week, you're still able to claim unemployment and then work up to 32 hours a week. Even if you're not working, you have 16 weeks for that layoff to happen and then to bring you back on. So that employer can bring you back on after 16 weeks or before or up to 16 weeks. So we're really hoping a lot of this is temporary, but everything's showing that this could be multiple months. So 16 weeks should still cover most individuals during this time. Any questions on unemployment? I know it's a lot, right?
No, it's good. I think the hardest part, is again, we're just saying it over and over, is the be proactive piece of it. And I think one of the things that's important about this forum is that a lot of the people who need to be proactive might not be listening right now. So there might be a lot of people on here who are going to be caring for and advising other people. So even if you're not in this situation, God may use you in order to push people towards some of these right resources. So thanks, for this great information. What else do you have for us, Brett?
Absolutely. So then the other thing, just on the email that I did send Aaron, so we have rapid response phone calls. So we have those mapped out 4 times a week on Tuesday and Thursdays. And so that schedule's on there. So if you have anyone who is having some frustrations or going through this and they're not really hearing it from you, you can send them to these calls, and we have these calls 4 times a week. And all they have to do is pick up any mobile device, any telephone, landline. They don't have to have access to internet for that. They can also see the webinar at the same time if they do have access through Zoom or any other platform. They can connect through our conference call that way. And then we have Hire Now teleconference calls as well. So we're bringing employers on every day, twice a day, who are hiring right now. And it goes through the whole hiring process. It talks about what the job requires. If they're hiring on a temporary basis, most of these employers that we're bringing on have quick hiring processes that only take about 24 hours. So we can get them working pretty quick and then get a paycheck to them quicker than unemployment can get that to them. So we are reaching out to a lot of organizations, all the ones you mentioned, plus I think you mentioned, Lisa, you mentioned Lowe's, Home Depot's another one, Verizon, UPS, Staples, and then Instacart. You did mention Uber as well, Lisa. That's another great one that we have seen them kind of not back off on hiring right now, Uber and Lyft, because they're trying to keep the drivers that are currently driving employed. However, they still have an application out there that you can submit. So a lot of these gig jobs that happened from 2008, that basically came out of, the ashes of the Great Recession, right? A lot of these, luckily we have a lot of these internet companies that have these kind of gig positions for people and individuals. So we'll connect them on those calls. Like I said, that's twice a day, every day. And then we also have a virtual job fair going on for 30 days straight, where they can go to the virtual job fair, find all these jobs plus other ones, these that I've mentioned and other ones. And it is a direct link to their application process, so we can get that process going for them pretty quick.
That's so great. So that phone number and these email or these links, we're going to have these embedded into the Facebook right below in our comment section. So if you're watching, look in the comment section below and you'll see these different links that'll pop up for you. Awesome, Brett. Any last thoughts?
No, I know these are hard times for everyone, but I appreciate everyone on this call for just listening and knowing that, there's a lot of people out there and a lot of resources behind you. So we're going to get through this together.
And yeah, thanks so much for jumping on this, and thanks for caring for people. I mean, you are dealing with a huge population of people whose hope bucket has been drained.
Oh, absolutely.
People who are just feeling like they are at the end of their rope, and man, to be able to provide hope and some solutions to people is just so amazing. So way to go, Brett. Thanks for doing what you're doing to serve the community.
Thank you all, and thank you for the time. Appreciate it, Aaron.
Thank
Awesome.
you, Brett.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, Aaron, what's your final thoughts as we're wrapping up?
Yeah, I guess I just always defer to, just taking situations to prayer. Obviously, God's doing something and he's in control, and we need to kind of lean into that. I do work in the nonprofit space with clients across every sector in that industry, and I do feel like there's going to be a renewed season of generosity and compassion. I mean, it happens every day just on Nextdoor app, with my local neighbors, but that's going beyond even my neighborhood or your neighborhood. That's all over the country. I'm seeing it each and every day. So that brings me a source of joy, and I hope it does to you as well. I guess lastly, I know a lot of folks are finding themselves in one of these categories that we've talked about. It's been a while since, as a church, we've kind of walked through a financial study. If there's interest out there, if you want to let us know in the Facebook comments below, or call the church, call Carmen. If there's interest, I'm happy and would be honored to walk through another class kind of a basics 101, but again, very valuable to me or to anybody at different stages of life. So thanks so much.
Yeah, man, that's so good. Thank you for offering that, and I hope people will take you up on it. Like you said, just go ahead and underneath in the comments, just put that you're interested, and we'll follow up with you guys. I love that you just mentioned Nextdoor. What a great platform. So if you're listening to this and you want to write a quick little blurb, hey, I just watched, Conquering COVID Financially, an online thing that our church just did, you can give them the link for this on Nextdoor, and then they can come back and they can watch us afterwards. We'll have it available for streaming and lots of different things like that. So that's awesome. Another thing that we could do, if people are interested, we could, instead of doing, kind of a Facebook thread like this, another platform would be to do a live Zoom question and answer. And I'm assuming that each of the 3 or 4 of us would be more than happy to jump on again. But if you want to do that, also in the comment section or emailing us, however you want to notify us, let us know if you want to do that. That might be a pretty great way to get into some more nuts and bolts of some particulars of your situations. Wrapping up, I think the theme has been pretty clear. We really want to urge you to take action. So what we'd really like to ask you right now is, what's your takeaway from this? Like if you're sitting back and you're thinking, man, I just gave an hour of my life to thinking this through, instead of just going, oh man, that was awesome, they did a great job. Like, what would it be that God would be prompting you to actually go do? What are 1 or 2 things that if you actually put them into action, they would change your life or help you to bring life or relieve some pain and suffering and give some hope to some other people in your lives? So I'd love for you to think that through and just think, what are 1 or even 2 things that I need to do as a takeaway? And then I'm going to push you even a little bit further, because I just know how I work. I get great ideas, and unless I actually put them on my calendar, they oftentimes don't get done. So the second thing I would love to say is, what are 1 or 2 of the things that you want to do, but when are you going to do them? And then, like right now, like literally look at your calendar and put them on your calendar. And then if you really want to see change in your life, bring some other people along in the process with you. If you're married or have a partner, you can talk to them about that and say, we really need to do this. Or if you're single or you just don't like talking to your partner, I don't know, like contact one of us or somebody else. But like, think, who can you do this with? Or maybe someone else who really needs some spurring on, and you want to encourage them and say, I'd really like to review my budget. Let's do this together. So that would be some of the different kind of takeaways that I would say is, what are you going to do? When are you going to do it? Who are you going to do it with? And doing it for the right reasons, realizing that God does care about our lives. He cares about all of it, and money is an important part of our life. It's not that we don't care about money. It's that the love of evil the love of money is the root of all evil. Screwing that one up there. It's not that money is evil. Money exposes what's in our heart, and so we don't want to push into loving money or things. We want to love people and use money and not have that be reversed, right? We don't want to use people and love money. We want to love people and use money for that end. So we hope this has been of value to you. We hope that you've taken some great things. Again, I want to just thank you, Aaron, Dave, Lisa, Brett, for joining us today. Super valuable, great information that you brought to us. Next week, we're going to look to do the same thing. We're going to do Conquering COVID-19 Emotionally. So I'm going to bring some of our counselors and spiritual formation people from our congregation on, do a similar type of a format. What I'd really like to look and think about next week is, how do we handle stress? How do we handle fear? How are we handling anxiety? When life hits the fan, oftentimes it brings out the worst in us. And so how do we continue to partner with God and find hope and find new ways of living and ultimately come out on the other side? I love what Lisa had mentioned, and I just want to piggyback off of that. I heard that NASCAR drivers, when they're trained, they're flying around the track at like a bazillion miles an hour, right? If there's a pile up ahead of you, There's two types of drivers. There's the one type of driver that sees the pile and just sees all the damage and sees the collateral damage in front. But in order to survive, you have to see the whole. And so the NASCAR drivers are trained to look for the whole and not get sidetracked on all of the other stuff that's going around them. So in your life right now, what are the things that are spinning out of control? And instead of focusing on those, I love what Lisa was saying, is find that whole, find that opportunity. Where is God directing you? Maybe these are times that God is literally changing the course of your life. Maybe you're supposed to move to Colorado or move out of Colorado. Maybe you need to sell and move in with family for a little while in order to recover or get training and go into a different, I don't know. But I would encourage you, like what Aaron said, would be to pray and ask God what he has for you in this time. One of the things that I would hate for all of us is to go through hard times and difficulties and crises like this and to not pick up the valuable tools that God wants to give us, the gifts that God has to give for us. So please know that as a church, we are praying for you. If you have different prayer requests, please send them in. We would love to be praying over your situations. On our website, there's a place where you can submit prayer requests. You can contact us at the church, lots of different ways. So thanks. Have a great night or day or morning, whatever you're watching this, and we will catch you again next week.